every time we see any mass struggle, it's almost always that working class people and oppressed people rise up. We almost always see kind of women at the forefront of it. We saw it in Russia in 1917, when tens of thousands of women took to the streets, sparking the February Revolution. That was what led to the famous October Revolution. And we don't have to go that far back in time. We can also see it now happening in Myanmar, where women and working class women in particular are on the front lines of this struggle. So I was wondering, is this the case for the Paris Commune as well? Can you tell us a little bit about the role that women played there, Harper?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, Yara, because for me, it's one of the most inspirational parts of for me, about learning about the Paris Commune. You know, I think working class women, working class people of color have often been like relegated to the sidelines of history. It's almost as if because they were the most oppressed and exploited, they didn't have a role to play, when actually it's precisely because of that they had played such a central role, you know. Yeah, women in the Paris Commune did play a central role exactly for that reason. Even though actually in the French left at that time period, there were a lot of, different ideas. For instance, Joseph Proudhon was a French anarchist at the time who had a significant impact on the influence on the French International, the French section of the First International. And he actually theorized the women's weakness, women's stupidity, and women's immorality, you know. And even though socialists that actually ended up becoming leading communards, male socialists that ended up becoming leading communards, you know, fought against this, it did have a certain impact on French politics, left-wing politics at the time. But kind of because some of these ideas were out there even prior to the Commune, women revolutionaries and women socialists were actually organizing, prioritizing things like girls' education, the education of working class girls, which made a huge impact and laid the groundwork for some of the progressive reforms in terms of the separation of church and state and the hiring of women secular teachers under the Commune. And also women's involvement in political clubs throughout the 1860s, but leading into the Commune, again, was super important. In those clubs, women fought for the right to work, they fought for equal wages, they fought for the necessity of divorce, and often pointed to the role of the church and the state in particular about being their oppressors, you know. The Union, I should just say, the Union of Women for Defense of Paris was formed in response to the French government declaring war on Paris. It played a huge role, arguably one of the most important organizations within the Paris Commune. It was born from some of the political clubs or some of the conversations happening in the political clubs that women were involved in prior to the Commune and during. It provided caregiving facilities for children and the elderly. It recruited nurses, especially in the context of battle. But it was also political. It was actually the first French women's organization to connect gender discrimination as a tool used by the ruling class to foment power. And a lot of the women revolutionaries, including people like Elizabeth Dmitrieff, who was one of the first signatories to the First International in Russia, and was a prime organizer in the Paris Commune, was in constant communication with Marx. So there was a very conscious organization of women during the Paris Commune, which played a big role.